studio is geopolitical analyst Marco Vicenzino. Thank you very much for coming in to talk to us. Let's get your analysis on this latest news that we are getting about Egypt potentially opening up its border and a limited ceasefire taking place to get aid through.
As hostilities continue, escalate, and the casualties increase, there may be a need for that, but it would be on a very limited basis. We are experiencing here, this is a transformative moment, not just between Israel and the Palestinian side, but between Israel and the broader region, specifically, you call it the Iranian axis, Iran, Hezbollah, and different forces in the region. And so in this sense, there is the threat of a broader regional war at stake. The state of Israel, a cornerstone of its foreign security and defense policy over the years has been the concept of deterrence. And on October 7th, that deterrence was somewhat shattered. Israel has to restore it. And how is it going to restore it? It's going to try to take firm action. And as we see in the coming weeks and the coming days, a ground offensive will take place. It's a matter of how and when. And not just that, it's that unlike the previous Israel-Gaza conflicts of recent years, or the last 2 decades, this one's different. This one, because you have estimated 150 hostages, Israeli hostages, women, children, soldiers, and Hamas is fully aware of how sensitive Israel is. I mean, remember in 2011, Israel gave up 1,000 Palestinian prisoners for one Israeli soldier.
Do you think there's a possibility that could be negotiated again, a prisoner swap? Palestinian women and children in Israeli prisons?
Difficult, not impossible, but very difficult because of the urgency of the situation here, is that the longer this drags on, the higher the risk for a regional conflagration. I think Israel wants to move as fast as possible. Obviously, it has 300,000 soldiers that it's mobilized, reservists. That's the biggest in Israeli history. In recent days, we've seen the biggest bombings in Israeli history in terms of specifically with Gaza. This is a state of war from the Israeli perspective. So when you have that, I'm not saying that it's going to discard the 150 hostages, but if you look at it in the sense of urgency, they're trying to get on the ground as soon as possible.
Yeah, they do have this specialist commando or special forces unit that is trained in actually extracting hostages. But I wonder whether they are waiting until they've got the thoughts of Antony Blinken, who's the US Secretary of State, who is due there, may even have arrived, some reports suggest. We've got James Cleverly, the British Foreign Secretary. I mean, will they be saying, don't get drawn into this, because it may well be that part of the Hamas plan, knowing what the Israeli reaction would be in Gaza?
It's urban warfare, and urban warfare would be some of the worst types. One of the most densely populated areas in the world. You're talking street to street, building to building, floor to floor on each building. I think right now is that there's a bit of gap, a bit of time. That bit of time is because Israel's preparing. You're not going to just launch an invasion overnight, a ground force. But Israel's allies are trying to use that situation to try to use some kind of diplomatic measures to lessen the fighting as much as possible. But in my opinion, they're going to go forward with this.
Yeah, because you will know that there is a thinking that once they go into Gaza, that's maybe when Hezbollah launches from Lebanon in the north, and that's, again, when it becomes a war on 2 fronts.
It depends how long it goes on for, the level of casualties. There's many variables at play. It's not that really Hezbollah's mobilized, a massive mobilization. Hezbollah has mobilized its troops. Ordinary Lebanese don't want this war. Many are fleeing north to safer areas, and many are very angry at the fact that Hezbollah may be getting involved, and they're going to be the victims. So in this sense is that Hezbollah has to be very careful. There's several calculations. There's a domestic issue, the issue also with Iran.
Well, exactly. I mean, aren't they just going to be doing, as Hamas has done, according to some, the bidding of Iran, and they are the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes?
They're having massive influence behind the scenes. Hamas did not do this on its own. That was a highly sophisticated attack.
Is Iran supplying the weapons to Hamas? Because they're still firing rockets, aren't they?
Iran, Hezbollah, these missiles that they've been coming in, these missiles, for several years. There's been some moment like this one, there's been years of preparation. The previous massive Hezbollah Israel war was in 2006. It was roughly a 30-day war. And in those 15 years, Hezbollah, with the help of Iran, has developed highly sophisticated missiles that can go deep into Israel.
Yeah.
So this time around, it's a very dangerous situation. Plus, you have the issue of Syria. You have Iranian militants that have been operating in Syria during the past 10 years of the Syrian civil war. They're also an element that can play a very dangerous role in terms of the Golan Heights. So Israel, and if you look at its borders, the north with Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Lebanese border. It's further northeast, you have Syria. And then obviously Hamas, the Gaza Strip. Now, with Egypt, it's different because Egypt has signed the peace agreement with Israel in 1980. They've had very good relationship, and there's a lot of cooperation between the two. In fact, in recent years, you've had a jihadist war going on in the Sinai, and Israel has been playing a very helpful role to Egyptian forces.
You mentioned that potentially Egypt might allow women and children.
It would be very
Gaza
limited. It would be very limited because Egypt does not. Some level of spillover may be inevitable, but Egypt doesn't want massive refugees coming. They won't accept that. They will not accept.
The last quote. We're just getting reports that a rocket from Gaza has hit the hospital in Ashkelon. That's just coming through in Reuters. We'll update you as we get more on that. But what about the failure of Israel to actually look at what was developing within Gaza, and the fact they breached defence, the fact that they amassed this arsenal of weapons, and the fact that they were so late getting the Israeli Defence Force down south? There are major questions there for Netanyahu and for the IDF.
The largest failure in Israel's history in terms of an intelligence failure was in 1973, the Yom Kippur War, where there was a direct existential threat to Israel from an attack from Syria and from Egypt simultaneously.
And Egypt directly involved at that stage,
But this time, I think what happened on October 7th is the second worst intelligence failure at this stage in Israel's history. What was happening, I think, is that in the past year, most of the violence that's actually been taking place has been in the West Bank between Palestinians and settlers. Gaza was fairly quiet, relatively quiet. About 20 to 30,000 Gazan workers were coming into Israel every day. There was a sense of false security. And then plus you had the several months of protests in Israel, very divisive in society. It may have impacted morale. It may have impacted preparedness. And all along, Hamas and its allies and its supporters were preparing clandestinely for this, covertly. And they hit, and this was, from their perspective, is something probably it went more effective than they actually expected themselves.
Geopolitical analyst Marco Vicenzino, thank you very much for coming in and giving us your valuable insight. Thank you. Let's just update you with that news they're getting on Reuters, that rockets from Gaza has hit the hospital in Israel's southern city of Ashkelon. Suggestions that the hospital may be moving effectively underground, or at least moving to lower floors, and also that Tel Aviv, the hospital authorities there have been preparing for a worst-case scenario there as well in terms of any rocket or missile strikes. So clearly the health service in Israel is starting to react to this ongoing crisis.